Okay, so good evening, good morning, and good day.
Good evening, Michelle.
Yeah. So this session is the final in this series of navigating through turbulent times. Last three sessions, we basically saw the Upanishad's wisdom of who we really are and what are the ways to realize that. And it's kind of pretty vast, I would say, even though if you put together all these 5 sessions, it's like a one-day crash course on spirituality. So I thought today we'll look at how we can apply them in some way. And when we look at applying it into our context, there are many ways, because there are as many ways as the number of individuals. Because each of us, our past is different, our present situation is different, and our future paths are also different. So there is no one size fits all here. So this is going to be a little bit more of my experiences or what I found as useful, so that it could trigger you certain thoughts for your context. You can look at it that way. And so as we go along, we'll see some of those aspects. So hope I won't bore you with too much of sorry, I and me in this session. Because without referring to some context, some of this applying into our life becomes too much of a hypothetical or theoretical. So I thought I will share some of my own context. And I chose this topic of skillful driving through chaotic traffic. It's because we saw that last 3 sessions, we have such a powerful vehicle, this Panchakoshas or body mind complex, whatever you call it as. And we are not trained on this, how to use it, what all its features, how it works. And most of the people in the world are not trained on, because that education has been cut off for many reasons. So everybody is randomly driving this very powerful vehicle. In fact, I would say people are driving without driving license. So obviously people are bumping into each other. They themselves are crashing into different places. And when we bump into each other, there are conflicts and we get into, fights. So all that is happening. So since we become a little bit aware of that now, what this vehicle is, how we can maneuver it, probably we can drive a little bit more skillfully so that we can avoid accidents. We can avoid, street fights, so to say. So that's why the skillful driving through chaotic traffic. And that will be a smart living, so that we'll have less friction in life. So again, quick recap. We looked at, the planet Earth is transitioning from dark age to light age, yuga cycles. Light consciousness is increasing on the planet based on many yogis, how they are saying, as well as our own experiences around when you look at that. And there is turbulence at the surface, which we obviously notice, though there is a positive transformation is taking place from the depth. If you pay attention, we will see that as well. And best way to navigate these turbulent times smoothly is move towards and operating from the eye of the storm rather than get caught up in the periphery. And there are many paths. That's what we looked at. And this is the map we looked at, which is, we know this, there is this Upanishadic reality of just one consciousness as the whole existence, non-dual, Advaita. And we are in this map somewhere based on our, our own conditions. So majority of the world is running towards this left, which is in a way away from this reality, because their reality is a lot more driven by even ours right now, is by, we see this physical world as the real thing, and it looks to be so tangible and so real. And we are just chasing that because that is our vision. So I want to maximize that piece of reality, basically. But whereas the real truth is that we should be moving towards this, which is one consciousness, which is a beyond body mind, the virtual reality gadget that we saw. And that is what we have embarked upon. So this is the map that we are looking at. And we also looked at, we have this vehicle, the Panchakoshas, and we want to move towards this eye of the storm, where it is stillness, quiet, tranquil state of mind, and operate from there, even though around us, we see this whole turbulence. And for that, we saw release the anchors, fears, desires, emotions, limiting beliefs, and adjust the skills, sails and rudders through awareness, acceptance, alignment, flow, and then fire the engines through combinations of this, jnana, bhakti, kriya, karma, etc. So today, after seeing all these things, it may all look okay, all that is good, but what about my happiness today, right? Because everybody is pursuing happiness in essence. Whoever is running left is also pursuing happiness. Whoever running right is also pursuing happiness. They are pursuing maybe like a bliss, phenomenal happiness or permanent happiness, whatever it is. So we are all pursuing happiness. That is driving us basically. So now if you look at our happiness graph, how does it look like? As a child, if you observe children, and as an adult, see, as children, if you observe, most of the time they are happy. Time versus happiness graph, if you plot over a week, for example, most of the time children are happy. Once in a while, they become unhappy and then immediately go back. They will start running and jumping and playing. So for them, something has to happen to become unhappy. For us, we have turned it around. Most of the time, not so happy. And once in a while, we'll become happy. And then come back to again, not so happy state. For us, something has to happen to become happy. We say, if I get this happy, if this happens, I'll be happy. If somebody responds as I expected, I'll be happy. We have made happiness conditional. And we were also children once upon a time, right? So how did we convert this? How did we achieve this? If you pay attention, basically children live in the present moment. Their mind is not wandering into the past and future. They just live in the present moment. Whereas we, if you observe our thoughts, 90% of the time it's oscillating between past and future. Oh, I should have done that. Why this person said like this? Or into the future. What if this happens? I should do this, all this planning, all those kind of things. So we are hardly at the present moment. And we have set up a lot of expectations because we have gathered so much of data in our growing up. We saw that the virtual reality gadget, we're gathering so much data and creating more software. So we have built so much conditions and layers on top of that. So we have turned it into a conditional happiness. So it's always becoming a mirage. I keep chasing that. So what is driving this? Why are we chasing that? That starts basically by what is our purpose in life, or the vision in life. For that, I want to show another graph. This is from Subrata Bakshi. There's two axes, platform and purpose. See, platform is our body, mind, our education, our experience levels, network of connection with people, net worth, which is more of our financial status, our family. All this is our platform. It is providing us a platform to do something, right? And most of the time we are busy actually building this platform. If you really pay attention, we have a phenomenal platform which we won't realize. What I listed here is more of a top of the iceberg, the visible part. If you pay attention to the invisible part, which is, we are provided with air, free air. We don't pay attention to that at all. If you track every item that we are supported in our life and trace it back. For example, so many people are working behind to get us a, a kg of grain, rice or wheat or whatever. So many people are working behind to get us water into our house. And we don't forget, we just forget that. We don't pay attention to that. That's also our platform. At some level, if you look at, there are billions of gut bacteria who are helping us in digestion. So like that, you can trace back. We have such a phenomenal platform. And if you just recognize this, we can have nothing but just gratitude, right? But what is missing is this purpose. What are we chasing? Or what is our vision? And most of this life fulfillment comes from that. In fact, there are many studies, research shown that which show that they have interviewed people, successful people, rich and famous, all those powerful people during at the time of death, almost in their deathbed. And most of such people say, I wasted my life. Because what I thought was the most important is not really that important. Somewhere this purpose got missed, the larger purpose. So if you look at this as a quadrant, there's low platform, low purpose. These are really people struggling with survival. So we are not in that state. There are low platform, high purpose. People who are struggling to make a living, but they have high ambition, high aspirations. That is another category. Most of the people, especially in this modern, educated, industrial, fairly well-to-do people fall in this category. High platform, low purpose. They have good enough platform, but they don't know what is the real purpose or vision of life. So what is needed to is move from there to high platform, high purpose. This is the zone of fulfillment in life. So what is that purpose? And we do a lot of coaching of leaders. Many times we see that this is where people are stuck, and it becomes a little bit of a life coaching. And when they get that clarity, we see people feel more secure, they collaborate better, they develop other people better, all those kind of things, they get liberated actually. So what is this purpose? That's the most important point to start with. Life vision, purpose. At the highest level, this is what Upanishads are showing, right? Aham Brahmasmi. I am God, consciousness, or infinity, whatever you call. At this level, there is no vision, purpose, nothing. Because vision, purpose means still it's something future. Wherever or what, but what Upanishads are showing us is we are already Brahman. We are already this infinite consciousness. Only thing is we are not realizing it. So if we are really in a just being state, there is no vision, purpose, nothing. Vision, purpose means we are into the future. We are not in the present, right? We are looking ahead. But we won't get this so easily. So we are still in the doing state, thinking state. So the next best vision or purpose to have is Atmano Mokshartam Jagadhitayacha. We saw that. That is one's own self-realization, liberation, and helping others. So this is the kind of highest vision we can look at, which can align on all our actions, drive and motivate, all those kind of things. Vision is very powerful. Vision is defined as positive image of the future. So it inspires, it gives a positive, drive, and it gives the direction, very important. Whether I'm running to the left or running to the right in our metaphor, that is decided based on the vision. So if my vision is that this world is just physical, these objects and materials, I will just chase on the left side. If I become aware that life has a much bigger vision and purpose, which is Advaita, for example, then I'll, move towards this right side. So vision decides the direction. That's why vision, life vision is the first step to look at or start our journey. So this is again my own sharing a little bit of my experience. This happened almost 21 years back for me. This picture came and I just wrote it down. It's something like this. I like trekking and mountains lure me. But I see people are pursuing wealth, power, status as the highest goal in life. They think that is the highest peak to climb in life. But as they climb, they see more taller peaks around. They are unable to see the tallest peak as it's obscured by clouds of ignorance. So my life goal vision is to attain that higher state of self-realization and help as many people as possible. So I'll be shuttling between the tallest peak and the other mountain peaks so that I can help them to see the tallest peak. And in that process, I evolve. This is the picture came almost 21 years back when I was moving from my Motorola to Mindtree. In fact, I was in a very comfortable situation. Motorola, great multinational company. I was not looking out, but I was headhunted. So from Mindtree, I was not very keen, but something kind of intuitively, I felt that by joining Mindtree, it will help me to pursue this. So it was totally intuitively because I didn't know, I haven't heard Ashok Soota, Subrata Bakshi, none of the co-founders. And it was a totally unknown startup. So on what basis to join, So it was actually this intuitive vision that actually was propelling me. And after 9 years, I again moved out of Mindtree. I went through a 2 years of churn within myself about what's the real purpose of life, what should be the most worthwhile thing to do. Then it struck me that it is really what I was looking was Atmano Mokshartam, this top part, and Jagadhitaya, shuttling between these two. So it brought a lot of clarity. So once we get this vision clarity, I think it brings so much of relief, because otherwise we are struggling where to go, what to do, which way to go. Once the clarity in vision comes, it actually propels. Just thought of sharing this. And then once vision is there, next we look at strategy. So how to move towards that. So for me, again, this was looking at wholesome life. That means balancing professional life, family, social life, and personal spiritual life. I saw it as 3 segments and balancing all the 3 because they reinforce each other. If any one of them is not doing good, it affects the other. Similarly, if any area, if it becomes good, it affects the other also, right? For example, if there is a lot of problem in professional life, it also affects in the family social life. And when I'm so disturbed, it also affects my spiritual life and vice versa. So all these 3 can become negative spiral or they can become a positive spiral. So I saw this is very important to look at holistically and then consciously address all the 3 dimensions. The intensity of these dimensions could vary as we progress in our life cycle. I'll come to that in a while. And this was again almost 20 years back. I drew this painting as a reminder for myself because pictures remain in the mind a lot more. That's why I thought of sharing, because it could stay in your mind as well. This actually Kovalam beach in Kerala. So I replaced the sun with yin yang, which is a balance essentially. And for me, this people fishing, it's like a professional life, earning a living. And on this shore, there are actually huts and people who can't see it properly in this picture. That's like the social family life. And this sky, light, sun, birds, all these things is like spiritual life, more liberated and open. And yin yang is the balance of all of them. So this is wholesome life, so that it guides me to be consciously balancing all of them. So once we have the strategy, then we need the plan. So this spreadsheet helped me, and I see this in so many people as we do coaching. even though you do a lot of leadership coaching, invariably it turns into life coaching, because most people are struggling with actually life issues, not just the professional issues. They have got enough training and input on managing the professional side. Actually, they're struggling really dealing with life and dealing with oneself. So it turns into life coaching. And I share this with many people, and they have found it very useful. So I can share this spreadsheet also later. What I found useful for me is that those three dimensions: family, social, professional, personal, spiritual. Having these three dimensions and just plot the years sequentially, then who are all dependent on me, or whom I need to pay attention to. So it could be, you can look at you, your spouse, parents, children, and plot their age as this year progresses, and look at their stage in life. Because then up to what stage you need to have what intensity of those three dimensions of life. So especially in the earlier stages, a lot more intensity on the professional life, and then gradually you can reduce, because they will come up and children will become more self-sustained. And then you can gradually increase even the spiritual intensity. But very important point is not to forget this, not to say that, okay, personal spiritual, I'll take care after retirement. It will be like saying, I will start my systematic investment plan after retirement. It doesn't work, because this requires, we are using the same vehicle for all these three dimensions of life. And the spiritual life also requires equally strong this vehicle. If you say, I will use it after retirement, after I become very old, it doesn't work, because your vehicle has become old. It requires certain levels of vibrancy in energy, in mind. So it's very important to have that dimension active. And we look at how we can do that as we focus on our professional, family, social life as well. So this is, I found, another useful thing to practically use all these things in a conscious way. And what I showed now is actually represents in a way the life cycle stages in our ancient wisdom, which is, they have very beautifully articulated this. The Balya, playfully explore and understand nature. Then Brahmacharya, discover and develop inner mastery. See, just like Dinacharya is activities to deal with day to day, Brahmacharya is actually activities to deal with Brahman, that is for the higher purpose. So this phase of life was supposed to be for what we did this one, the crash course. Really understand this Advaita, that means we are actually this one consciousness, and this Panchakoshas, our vehicle, all those kind of things. Develop that inner mastery. And then Grahastha is go out and manage the world and do good to the world. And once you children are able to sustain, then you move to Vanaprastha, which is relinquish the worldly duties and explore the higher dimensions. Then finally Sannyasa, which is we come alone and we have to go alone back. So prepare for the soul journey. This is a wonderful life cycle. But what has happened is we have skipped almost this Balya and Brahmacharya. Everything has become managing outside, because our vision became in the dark age that this is all physical world that needs to be dealt with. So now what's happening is we are training or coaching these leaders. After 40, 50 years, they realize that I don't know how to manage myself, because we skipped this Brahmacharya part. And that is the struggle that's going on. So I just wanted to show what's happening in that field, because it's kind of an awakening happening, I would say, where people are seeking that now, how to deal with myself, how to manage self. So that's what we do in PM Power Consulting as one of our, coaching consulting activities. which is called mindful leadership. The whole focus is managing outside by mastering inside. Because the more complex situations and people we have to deal with outside, we need more inner mastery in managing our own energy, emotions, mind, thinking, etc. So it's like if you want to get fruits in the tree, you nurture the roots. And that's what we are now coaching people. In fact, we have done this for more than about 4,000 people so far. And there is tremendous response. In fact, 10 years back when I started this, there used to be a lot of resistance saying that, oh, if I say meditation, they will say, oh, it's religious, it's non-secular, all those kind of things. Now people are pulling it. There is, so much pull. For example, just last week, I did a session for CII, the Confederation of Indian Industries. They said maybe 40 people will attend. More than 80 people turned up, all senior leaders from all big companies, Bosch, Siemens, Godrej, L&T, many big corporates. That's a very good sign because I see this is part of the awakening that's happening. People are waking up and actually seeing that there is a search happening. And we also link it to larger transformations in the organization. This is how it starts with mindfulness, which drives emotional intelligence, develops emotional intelligence, which develops the leadership aspects, and then they manage the outside, the processes, activities, all those kinds of. So driving results from inside out. So now if you look at this, you can see this from a business professional area to linking to mindfulness, then going deeper into the spiritual dimension. So this is what's happening in my context of settling between the mountains, what I talked about. So I just thought of, just sprinkling this so that it could trigger some thought process in your own context. So basically then vision, strategy, plans, adopt. So now coming to a little bit more specifics in the skillful driving, some considerations which could be very useful. The first point I felt was dealing with self-doubt. In this journey, I feel that's a very big hindrance. What happens is we are a minority who are in that middle part, right? And we interact with this majority in our social context. So when we are having this session, we may feel, great, I think this is the best thing. We get pepped up and, there'll be a euphoria. Then we go back, mix with family, social, friends, and colleagues. Majority of them are not aligned this way. They are all running to the left. So we get influenced and we'll start really thinking, so is that real? Because this outside world looks to be so tangible, am I missing out? All those self-doubts start coming up actually. And many times we feel small because, oh, I'm not focusing on those, chasing those, I'm not competing in that race, or I'm not running enough fast on the left side, or I'm not running far enough. So my suggestion is that don't feel small. Don't get discouraged and disheartened. Because again, I'll show my own few personal experiences why I strongly feel convinced about this. As we saw, our real vision is actually on the right side. So people who are running faster on the left, who are running farther on the left, actually they have a longer way to come back. In fact, whoever are acquiring more, they have more to let go. So I see people who are on this direction, on the right side direction, they are more progressed. They are more advanced. And people on this path have high ambition. People think that people who are running on the left have the high ambition and aspirations and goal in life. I feel that people who are running on the right, in the real sense, they have a higher ambition because they are looking at ultimate goal, permanent happiness. That's why I feel don't feel small. and don't discount yourself. And these doubts will keep coming. So just, remind yourself. That's one thought I have. Then dealing with lack of motivation. This is another thing happens because we become on and off. Once in a while, it becomes, and again it goes down. So get inspired, hang on. I have few comments in the next slide about this. So I'll talk about it. Then dealing with challenges, problems. In fact, in this path, we can't expect that problems will go away. In fact, sometimes there could be more problems surfacing because more things actually can come out, what are hidden in us, you can say karma. We may encounter problems, but as Sri Sri Ravi Shankar said, problems are inevitable, suffering is optional. So we develop a capacity not to get perturbed by that actually. So when you see these problems, normally it will be about some world problems, worldly problems and problem with others. So don't try to change others or the world. It's like in that chaotic traffic, if you are driving and you see somebody is not driving properly, if you try to teach them, they will say, oh no, you are not driving properly. You better take care of that. You may get into street fight like that. So you will get good advices, what not to do. So don't try to change. Just call upon light, what we talked about. That means if you just say, let more light come. See, you don't have to wake up people by pulling their bed sheet or putting water on their face. You just increase the light. And when there is too much brightness, they can't sleep, they will wake up. Such a thing will happen actually. So as you increase your own, light, I would say, people around will change. And shift from problem solving to problems transcendence. This is another important step because in our upbringing, education, everywhere, we have been taught only about problem solving because we are only trained on using intellect. We think everything is a problem. I need to solve that problem. See, problem solving works for technical, linear, cause and effect situation. But life is a very complex adaptive system. Linear problem solving doesn't work. When people try to do that kind of a problem solving, they will create more problems. That's why high IQ people normally end up in a lot of people related issues because they tend to solve problem as a technical problem. So better way is to transcend the problem. We now know that problems created at one level of consciousness cannot be solved at the same level of consciousness. Transcend the problem means you move one level up in your awareness. When you actually move up, we'll see that many problems will just vanish. They are not really problems. It was our perception at that level. And when you do this, even others will respond much better. So raising our consciousness and looking at problems from a higher level actually is a better way rather than trying to solve problem at the same level. Another point is spiritualize everything. So this is a very important but not an easy thing. Of course, as I'm saying this, I'm also co-passenger, okay? I'm also trying to integrate and work upon myself as much as possible. So we don't have to differentiate this, whatever we are doing in the physical world, and oh, this is a spiritual thing now. Whatever we are doing, we can do either as an offering to God, which is a bhakti marga, or as a witness, which is a jnana marga. Both of these will create less entanglement. See, problem is when we are attached to something, we create problem, we create karma. It creates impressions. So when you are not attached, when you are not entangled, that means you are actually doing it in a spiritual way. Then use silence to be in touch with the core. This is very, very powerful. We hardly be in silence. Have you observed? We'll be constantly feeding something to the mind, either reading or listening or watching TV or talking to people. 24/7 almost, except we're going to sleep. Silence is equivalent to fasting for the body, you know, and silence is extremely powerful. What you can try is every week, maybe just 15, 30 minutes, just sit in silence, not even doing any meditation or yoga, nothing, just sit in silence and look at emptiness. You will be amazed. We can't look at emptiness. Just try that, okay? You will be getting awareness. It's amazing thing, because we always look at objects. Even if we look at sky, we want to look at the blue sky. That means that blue color which is reflected from particles, or we want to look at clouds. We cannot see the space in between. We always look at objects. Moment we start bringing this awareness of looking at emptiness, actually our mind starts settling down, because the moment we start looking at objects, mind starts processing it. Ah, what beautiful sky. Oh, white cloud. It starts analyzing, verbalizing, which is actually the chattering of the brain. So silence is just look at empty thing. Don't close your eyes and just observe thoughts. You will see so many things will come, and don't hang on to them. Just observe them, let go. You can even smile at them actually. So then gradually they die down, just like these bubbles that come up from the carbonated water. No, if you shake and leave it, after a while they die down. And that's an amazing thing. It's a powerful cleaning mechanism. So this is very good practice. Then of course we have seen in the last 3 sessions, release anchors, adjust sails and rudders, fire the engines, pick up some points from there and integrate into day-to-day life, because this is very vast. You may get overwhelmed. Simplicity is the key. In fact, as we move towards that right side, no, which is like the center of the circle, things will converge. That means number of complexities start reducing. Life starts becoming simpler actually. The more we run towards the left side, which is going away from the center of the circle, it is diverging. That means there will be more things to deal with, more things to juggle with, more things to make decisions. You will see it's actually more complex. So as you move towards the center of the eye of the storm, life starts becoming simpler over a period. So I thought this will be useful to look at from a skillful driving. Then I talked about get inspired. Again, some of this, there are many things. So whenever you feel low, or you feel that outside pull is more, or outside people influence, the majority people influence is more, you look at some of these getting inspired. For example, this book, Autobiography of Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda, amazing things, amazing revelations. In fact, there is one video, you can watch this, Steve Jobs' last gift. This is an interview with CEO of Salesforce.com. And in that, he shared about all these things. Steve Jobs died of cancer, and he knew that he's going to die. So he had made a list of people to be called for his memorial service and what gifts should be given to them. All great, the US political leaders, business leaders, all of them. And when they came, they got a gift. And when they opened it, it was this book. And he said, Steve Jobs had said, I got, phenomenally influenced by this book. My life got influenced. I want more people to read this. In fact, his sister shared that in his tablet, this is the only book he had downloaded. And he has read it many, many times. That's what. And of course, these are also very inspiring. Sri M's very similar kind of books. Apprentice to Himalayan Master and Journey Continues. In fact, we'll get a glimpse of what is our true potential. That is so inspiring then actually. Now coming to few personal spiritual experiences, how we can deal with your own personal experiences, and sharing my some spiritual experiences, what you people asked. I'll come to that. So on spiritual experiences, this is a very good practice. Keep a log. That means keep writing. Whenever you experience something, even if it's a very small experience, put a date and write about that experience. Or some days you get some insights. It clicks, something like that, insight. You put a date and keep writing that, because our minds needs constant reinforcement. So when you look back at some time, it will give you, I have made a journey. Yes, it looks to be going well, and also when you try to articulate that, it convinces the mind a little bit more. So keeping this log is a very good practice. And don't crave for or repulse any experience. This is very important, because when you get some experience, our tendency will be to hang on to that. Oh, it was a blissful meditation, I want to get more of such experience. We tend to do that. Don't try to cling on to that, because if you are saying I want to get that experience more and more, that means you are standing there, because these are like scenery on the journey. You are standing in the same place and want to keep on looking at the same scenery. Then on the other hand, if you repulse any experience, because there could be negative experiences also. When I say negative, little bit painful experience in this journey, because when these emotions bubble up, the hidden suppressed things come out. There could be kind of little painful experience, both at body, mind levels, energy levels. Again, just observe. Don't try to say, oh my God, this is happening, maybe I'm not progressing, or maybe something is going wrong. Don't try to repulse that also. Both of them, just be a witness, because these are all sceneries. Sometimes they are like milestones in the journey. Just watch them. This is another important thing. Hang on when it feels like nothing is happening or things are regressing. This happens many times. Some days it will be good, and after many long periods seems to be nothing happening. And sometimes it looks like maybe am I going backwards? These are all part of the journey. And sometimes it's called as dark night of the soul. It's like clouds have come, but just see that they are passing clouds. They all go. So just hang on. Again, these are all my own experiences. I just thought it could help. Now, coming to some of my personal spiritual experience and encounters, I was really lucky to have been meeting many, many enlightened souls. Some known, some not so known, but also went through certain experiences. One more thing about experience is that at the end, we have to go beyond experience, because experience is still at a body mind level. Very important to recognize this. In the beginning, it's important because we have to shift our experience from this physical world, five sensory world, to something beyond. Then our mind starts getting convinced, something there is more than this. That's why this yogic practices, Kriya Yoga, for example, when there is energy movement happens, when meditation, blissfulness happens, mind is now seeing something more experience than this outside physical world. So it starts getting convinced. So at that level, experiences are very useful. But after those stage, we should even keep not seeking experiences. We should look at awareness, because awareness is more powerful than experience. Experiences also are happening in the awareness, right? We saw that in all the Upanishad teaching. That means we should let go of experiences. That's why don't crave too much, okay? And don't put too much emphasis onto the experience also. So now sharing some of my experience, again, I was not so comfortable. In fact, some time back, I asked Sri M, should I share my experiences? Would it help anybody? Or would it hinder my own progress, because will it bloat my ego? He said, do share the experiences. But I then asked, will it bloat my ego? He said, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that. I don't know what it means. Maybe I'll get some tests. So one of the experience, this was in Art of Living. many years back, I attended that's an advanced program, which is a 3-day program and 3 days complete silence, 72 hours. When you say complete silence, it's about not talking to anybody, not making any eye contact with anybody, not reading or not listening to anything, uh, not looking here and there and trying to analyze anything. It's going into more and more silence. In fact, we'll have a badge so that nobody else disturbs us also, so that they know we are in silence. And many times, many people break down here actually, because silence becomes unbearable when our mind has been cluttered with so much. But once they cross through that, at the end of that program, people don't want to come out of that experience, you know. Silence is so beautiful. And there will be many meditations and some bhajans during that program. Last day, there was one meditation called Mahadeva. And in that, I experienced something which was beyond body and mind. That means I'm fully aware, but my body and mind and this entire world is not there. And just one, I can't describe it. You can say field. It's just one field. I have just faint awareness of that. I'm fully aware, that's all. You know, when I describe many of these things, I don't know, you may not be able to relate, or many of you can relate. And each of these experiences could be very different for everybody, because each of them are unique, you know. Our paths are unique. If you take that mountain analogy I shared, we may be walking different paths. Somebody may say there are a lot of beautiful flowers here. Somebody may say this is rocky here. So we should not be comparing even these experiences. And in fact, Advaita is more like, you know, going directly on the top of the hill with a helicopter. You won't even experience. In fact, for enlightenment, experience is not an essential thing. Awareness is the most important. So this was one experience. I was just there. It's not a fleeting moment, for quite some time. And when I came out of that, I noticed that there were tears of joy just flowing through my eyes, because until that time there was nothing, no body, nothing. I'm completely unaware of that. When I came out, it was like that. And it was a phenomenal experience. That was one, I would say, a demo, so to say. You know, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna did a demo to Arjuna, because Arjuna was asking a lot of questions but not getting convinced. Then Krishna did a demo, the Vishwarupa Darshana. So sometimes we need a demo to this mind so that it gets convinced. Another one was, I had gone to Kailash Manasarovar with Sadhguru as part of a kind of a yogic expedition. So this north phase of Kailash, which is most powerful, I was just sitting on a rock, and I thought I sat there for about 10 minutes. It was 2 hours. And I was fully aware, but you can see that time and space has vanished. There was some beautiful sound. I was just with that. Just that, you know. That means there is something beyond this body, mind, and this physical world which we perceive. One more I'll share, which is very, very phenomenal with Sri M. I went to one of his retreats. It's a 3D retreat, 3-day retreat in Madikeri. I just went with one of my friends. I was not very keen because I was deeply into Isha Yoga practices at that time. He asked me whether I can also come. So I said, okay. On the second day, we were all warming up. It was January, you know, severe cold, standing in the sun and warming up. And Sri M came from his kutir towards the dining hall, crossing the field. So he waved at me and said, breakfast. I also waved and said, breakfast. Then we just went. He took his breakfast and sat in the dining hall. It's like a buffet. I took my breakfast and sat on a corridor outside. I just sat there, and I don't know what happened. I just went into some kind of bliss. just tears rolling from the eyes. Again, I can't describe the situation. If I haven't tasted sweet, how to describe sweet? It's something like that. Okay. I was like that for 15 minutes and I was not able to eat breakfast. I was just sitting in front of that. After 15 minutes, I just raised my head and looked up, and Shriyam was directly looking at me through a window from the dining hall, and I couldn't keep my eye contact. It was so powerful. It was very blissful. I just closed my eyes and then had my breakfast. And after a while, something phenomenal started moving in my head from the back of the head. Powerful swirling of energy started coming up, came to the top of the head, you can say Sahasrara, and a very wide band of light around the head, and a very powerful pulses of electric pulses, you can say, from the top of the head going to kind of infinity. Very blissful. I was just enjoying that state. And many, many things, okay? It becomes too much of a long story. And after that, I came home and a lot of energy movement started from, the tip of the spinal cord to the head and spreading to the whole body. When I go into meditation, there will be burst of such energy. Sometimes it will toss me up the body itself. Later I came to know, because when I discussed with Suresh, he said, Shriyam removed some block of energy in me. That's why such a powerful experience happened and it cleared something. And after I came back home, I had some question. I didn't ask him there. We used to go for walk. There are about 120 people. People ask question, he will respond, etc. I had this question. I never, I don't know, somehow I didn't ask them. So after coming back, I wrote an email to him. And immediately he replied very strangely. I don't know how he does. He said, I have been waiting for you to bring this dilemma to me. In fact, I saw him, he can read people's mind. He can read people's thoughts. In fact, my friend had a question. He went to ask him. Even before he asked the question, he just responded. And my friend was kind of surprised. That means yogis can deal with this. We think this body, mind is a very private thing. It's actually public. Yogis can access that. And at conscious level, we are all connected, right? So all those things, what the yogis have written in their books, very, very true. I am kind of convinced because of all these experiences. As I said, we should go beyond the experience. They are good for initial convincing of the mind. Hope this is good enough sharing. Otherwise, I'll bore you with that. So then all these things which we talked about, pursuing this Upanishadic wisdom, will you get this permanent happiness only after this enlightenment, whatever it is, or will it help even day to day? Again, my experience is that there are a lot of byproducts on this journey. It starts paying dividend, immediately. We get better clarity and larger purpose in life. And then a lot of confusions reduce actually. Less perturbed by external situations, more balanced, equanimous, reduced fear, anxiety, worries, greed, anger, depression, boredom, all this, in fact, it very much happens because these are all our own mind's creation. Unconditional joy and love, more continuous. So I'm just comparing myself, how I was versus how I have changed. And you should not compare with others. That's very important. Okay? So I see this more and more. It's continuous joy and love. It's continuous, not so dependent on outside. Improved physical, mental, emotional well-being. Health also improves. Feeling lighter, liberated. We feel actually burden removed. More effective in whatever we are doing, being more present and using all the intelligences. Even our whatever professional work, for example, it becomes very creative by itself. Not too much thinking, just ideas come, pop up, what they call intuitive intelligence, and so on. So I see that this is worthwhile journey. Even if you don't reach, that's fine, because this is an investment for lifetimes. We are ready to invest for this life. 15-20 years of education, so much on professional earning, and so much just for, say, I want to have a good life. Now imagine if you want to have a good life for lifetimes. This is an investment. So I will complete and then we'll come to the discussion. Okay. So some practical steps we talked about. This is recap from the first session. All those things you can actually revisit that. I won't go into that. So one important point I want to call upon is this: whenever you come across negative situations in your own or with your surrounding, rather than trying to fix that or fix somebody else, fix the world, this is a very powerful way. Let there be light, let there be higher awareness. And we'll do one small meditation if people are okay to spend a little bit more, 5 minutes more time. All other things which you can take a look at, I just wanted to recap and you look at it again. Do you want to do this? A small meditation, light emanating meditation. This is actually from Suresh Ramaswamy's book, and he says go and teach anybody else also. Are you all okay to do this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure, we should. Can you just keep the previous slide on so that we can just browse? Yeah, that will be helpful. Thank you.
Now, when going to the meditation, don't start looking at this. This is there in the first session when we did also. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So now I want to take you through this, let there be light or light emanating meditation. How we can transmit light. When we say light, this is not this physical light. This is the subtle light. That means when the creation first started from this consciousness, the physical manifestation, that is called that light, the first vibration, you can say. We know the subtle leads to the gross, right? That means it's the source. So if you are able to tap at that level, you can impact the outward part. In fact, if you read some of those books, Autobiography of Yogi and all, how yogis can actually influence somebody's thoughts. There are wonderful examples they have given. How that means they can go to the subtle and impact the change in the world. They can change leaders' minds, So what is agochara, invisible, is much bigger and much powerful than what is gochara, visible, just like the iceberg. Iceberg moves not because of the wind outside, it moves because of the undercurrent in the water, which is invisible. Very similar where the invisible is more powerful. So we can tap into that. So now I want you to sit relaxed and keep your hand on your thighs, palm facing up. That helps. And just relax your shoulder and neck, because that's where we build up tension. Just loosen it. And loosen your eyes and eyebrows, because eyes, you can notice there also you build up tension, especially while watching screen and all. Just relax them. Close your eyes. Sit straight with your back and head straight. Take a deep breath and exhale fully. Can you all go on mute? There is somebody unmuted. There is a noise. Can all of you go on mute? Okay. Take another deep breath and exhale fully. Now visualize a bright sun on top of your head. and visualize a bright beam of light coming from that sun entering your head from the top. Visualize that light going towards your heart and filling your heart. You can visualize light in whichever way that happens. Okay, it's okay whichever way it happens. You don't have to force too much of thinking there. Now visualize that light is filling up all your body. You are flooded with light from the sun entering into your head, coming to your heart, and flooding the whole body. Now visualize that now the light is radiating from your heart to the entire world. It's just radiating from your heart to the entire world. Now visualize this flow from the sun going through your heart, through the whole world. Be in that state of visualization. As the light is flowing, you may experience some sensations, or sometimes you may not experience any sensation. Both are perfectly fine. Sometimes you may feel a sensation in your head, top of the head, tingling, swirling sensations. Sometimes you may feel a sensation in your heart, kind of fullness, kind of a bliss or pleasant feeling in the heart. You may experience some vibrations even in the between the eyebrows, the third eye or the Ajna chakra. Or you may experience some vibrations in the body. Or maybe some tingling sensations in the palm. You may even perceive this light as a sound as well. So just allow anything that's happening, and if nothing is happening, that's perfectly fine. That's also equally the right way. Continue to visualize the light flowing from the sun to your head, to the heart, and emanating to the whole world. Okay, now you can slowly open your eyes. See, this is very subtle. You try it out. The good thing about this is that we talked about Atmano Mokshartam Jagadhitaya, right? This helps in both. That means it actually purifies and cleans and elevates our system, because we are accessing the very source or the subtlest aspect of the creation. Or also, when it's transmitted to the whole world, it actually helps to bring the transformation. So we don't have to go and try to change people. We talked about increase the light, they will wake up. So this is doing something without accumulating karma. Otherwise, our physical actions normally create karma, because there is a impressions gets created. That way, this is very beautiful to, for those Atmano Mokshartam Jagadhitaya, that kind of a vision. So with that, let me just close. So for the modern age, this is a great book. In fact, Just Be summarizes everything, nothing else to be done, because we are already that. And whatever we are searching is already within us. And we are that already. And we have that. There is nothing else to get. There is nothing else to know. So it's just be, essentially. So this book is very great. And in fact, if you read it now, many of you know, I know you have this, you may get a little bit different kind of insight now. In fact, it's gist of all Upanishads teaching, but without using any of these jargons and concepts and frameworks, and just English and based on his direct experience. So it's very relevant in the modern age, I would say. So my closing comments, continue Shravana. This is reading, hearing, watching, Manana, contemplation, and Nididhyasana, meditating upon, on whatever we have learned in this one-day crash course, because we covered the gist of spirituality in essence. And some of you asked for one-on-one interactions. I'm okay for that. Only thing is, wherever I can help, and I can only hold some mirror, ask some questions, and give some pointers. But you will have to actually make the decisions, make the choices, work upon yourself, because you can't outsource that to anybody. And if you become more reliant on those things for others, actually you will disempower yourself, which is not a good thing. And just be joyful, grateful, manufacture happiness and distribute around. And my samarpane to great masters, because all of that is because of them. And thank you, all of you, because without your interest and engagement, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have got motivated, triggered, etc. So in a sense, you helped me to consolidate some of my experiences and journey, and you became catalyst in my evolution. So thank you very much for that. So with that, I'll stop sharing. And also, where do I stop recording?